Welcome, bienvenue, welcome once again to another live stream. Today's live stream is called Property Matters, as you can see by the newly crafted logo top right. Here we have in front of us Hamish McLay of Search and Convey, and our special guest today, Wendy Gibson of the First Time Buyers Club. Eagle-eyed amongst you may recognise her from a previous appearance. For today's topic, which, as ever, mildly mannered that it is pause or prep, home buying amid election chaos. And I think chaos is the right term for it. Anger, can you put some flesh on these bones?
Anger, or even Hamish.
Oh, my goodness. My goodness. You look so similar. That's the reason why. Anger is my teammate. Hamish, sorry.
Anger's about 1.5 feet taller than I am. That's you can't tell that whilst we're sort of.
He's only 6'3". Good Lord.
Well, yeah, that's what I said. Not sure of that. Well, I think following on from, this week we had a podcast yesterday, which was a very interesting one, where we had other experts from the property sort of market speaking about the particular sort of topic. Is now a good time to be doing things with an element of political upheaval, or as Gareth likes to put it, shenanigans. And the decision was quite an obvious one. And it's sort of saying, hey, look, no time is the right time necessarily. Whatever you're doing, providing you keep your eyes on what's going on. However, I think one of the great things about the sort of advice that Wendy offers, she isn't telling people to necessarily buy at this instant. She's preparing people, helping them to get into a particular position. And I think it's probably a good time. Wendy will sort of put me right on this. It's a good time. There's no bad time to be looking, no bad time to be preparing. I don't know. You tell me, Wendy.
Wendy, same question to you. Is this a good time to be buying anything?
If it's the right time for you, then it's always a good time to be buying. Because if you think about buying a home for yourself, you actually, I'm assuming, going to be living in it for a good period of time. So unless you are buying something and expecting to be only living in it for a short period of time, the longer you live in a property, the less market changes, the less political changes, the less all of these things have an impact on the home that you buy.
I heard there was going to be a tremendous property slump, but it hasn't arrived here yet, and the prices still seem to be sky high.
It depends on how you look at it, because if you take into account inflation, then in real terms, we've had a very secret property slump where house prices, if you take out inflation, have silently been going downwards. But because we tend to look at things with the purchasing power that we have, with the pound that we have today, it did look like prices have stayed relatively flat and are probably on there. It was starting to go up again. So, we've already had this slump. And this is why I personally think, in spite of the elections, if somebody's looking to buy a first home, now is as good a time as any.
Wow. So I thought there were better or worse times. Hamish, are there not better or worse times to buy? I thought there were fluctuations.
Well, there are fluctuations. However, I think we've actually found, and when we listen to it, and I mean, Wendy would probably be able to advise on this particular aspect as well. When we were speaking to Chris Gilson in the Route Home yesterday, he was actually sort of saying to us that the perspective depends on your position and what you're looking to actually sort of do. If you are astute in what you are doing, you will see something there that others won't see, because so many people are hanging back and thinking, oh, I don't know whether I should. Is it good? And however, being astute, working with the right people, you will find a good way to go forward. And I think as Wendy just sort of reinforced then, it could be from a first-time buyer's perspective. I did think I picked up on something you'd written, actually, Wendy, as to the relative position as to where that first-time buyer is compared to where they were in 2017. Are the first-time buyers that much worse off?
They are worse off in terms of the incentives that the government is offering. So, for example, the post that I put out that you're referring to says that first-time buyers these days have £132,000 less purchasing power than they had back in 2017 when the lifetime ISA was officially launched. So, for those who aren't aware, a lifetime ISA is a savings product which the government has provided. It's a tax-free vehicle that you can save either for a deposit primarily, or if you're not using it to buy your first home, it can be used as a vehicle for saving for retirement. There are certain criteria around being able to use this particular savings product. Certainly one of the benefits is that whatever pounds or however much you put into it, the government will match an additional 25% over and above what you've put in. You need to have held an account for over 12 months before you can draw out of it without paying any penalties. And you can only use it to buy towards a deposit for buying your first home if the home that you're buying is valued less than £450,000. Now, that threshold was set in 2017 when the product was introduced, and it's not changed since then. If it had actually stayed in line with house price inflation, today's money, it would mean that a first-time buyer could actually use their lifetime ISA for the deposit on a home up to £582,000.
Wow. Well, that's a revelation. Hamish?
Well, I mean, the strange thing is it does show the disparity in terms of, if you like, that asset that we're buying into. We call it an asset, and yes, certainly it would appear to be an asset. However, it's an essential because people need somewhere to live. Everybody needs something they can actually call home, and that's whether they're a single person, a single parent, a married couple, a big family. Everybody needs something somewhere that they can actually call it. And really, it's sort of trying to do that. And if we go up to the sort of northeast, and you can still buy properties for less than £100,000, or the northwest, you can still buy them for that. It makes a significant difference. And of course, the idea, and this is where somebody like Wendy comes in, is a great support to people who are trying to get onto that property ladder. If you want to get into somewhere buy somewhere in London, to actually obtain a mortgage there, that is tremendously challenging in terms of the price. However, in the northeast, I'm sure, but it will depend, because I'm sure one of the things I like about what Wendy does with her First Time Buyers Club is to help people, guide them through, and say she will speak to them and say, she will actually ask them, what do you want to do? What are you doing? Is it to be the family home, or is it a temporary or whatever? And of course, not a lot of people will necessarily, particularly if they jump quite in and they get involved with the conveyancing sort of platforms that exist out there, which is going down the factory route. They don't get the right solicitor working for them. They even more need the likes of Wendy's to support what they're doing. Somebody on their side.
Wow. So how's this going to affect people who are established and are looking to purchase? I mean, first-time buyers, I'm surprised anyone can buy, frankly, but more established people might have the ability to diversify their portfolio. I mean, should they wait until the other side of the election, or just go for it anyway?
If I was going to have a property investor hat on, I would say that the more uncertainty there is in the market, the more opportunities there are to get a good deal. And this is something that I like to try and encourage my first-time buyer clients as well, because if others are holding back because of uncertainty, then it reduces the competition for them if they're looking to buy. It begs the question, I suppose, as to whether we are really in a period of major uncertainty or not, depending on who you speak to. It could be construed that the elections are almost a given as to what the outcome is going to be. So, yes, there are major opportunities to be had in a time of uncertainty. It's up to you to decide whether we are in a period of uncertainty.
Well, we are in a period of uncertainty by definition, surely. We don't know what the hell's going to happen next. We know that it's going to be a slightly more reddish hue, or as I called it the other week, purple, because it's a mixture of red and blue. But whichever way, there is uncertainty in the property market. I mean, goodness, there was uncertainty when we changed from the 4th to the 5th PM, for goodness sakes. Hamish, do you think there's anything we can do to prevent property variance? There's very little, is there?
It doesn't actually matter, because we've lived through this variance for quite a significant period of time. We've known, as we've sort of said previously, since the 60s, whatever the government says about its house build program, it never gets anywhere near it. And sometimes they're more devastating than the others, like last year, because the fright that everybody was given with the Bank of England sort of rates, even the builders stopped building. They just left, almost like a sort of empty sort of site. They sort of took all the scaffolding down and sort of departed from development sites. So they never hit the target in making the availability of new homes out there, so there's always going to be a variance. Sometimes they build more houses, sometimes they build fewer houses. They can keep falling short of creating houses at an appropriate sort of level of price to make it easy for, particularly down in the southeast, where prices are that much higher. I mean, we're considered being the southeast in Oxfordshire. I mean, prices around here are absolutely ludicrous in terms of buying something compared to something similar. So there will be a variance. However, I think Wendy sort of put it right there when she said that if you look and you're looking carefully, I think we can get sucked in. We know there's a danger now.
Right,
and sadly, it might be the estate agent. It might be an estate agent pushing you. And this is where, again, Wendy can offer tremendous advice. It might be an estate agent. You've seen the property there. They're trying to push you down the route of, go down to my favourite solicitor who will help you out, because they're giving them a nice sort of little referral fee for the process, rather than putting them down the route of the I'm not suggesting they're all like that, don't get me wrong, but there are some that will actually do it rather than saying this is a particularly helpful and a good solicitor to go to.
I have to say, I don't think that's an unusual practice. But I would have thought, and Wendy, look, I'm an idiot in a hat, so what do I know? But I would have thought that given the proximity of an election, that as we get closer to that election, there'll be a lot of people trying to get through process, ensure that things are completed beforehand.
I guess the question is as to whether they feel that a change of government or the policies of the existing government, if they stay in place, are going to have a negative effect on the purchase of their property. I think most people are driven more by a need, as Hamish said, for a roof over their heads, rather than worrying too much about the political environment that we're in. And I think the numbers have shown historically that market changes and certainly political changes haven't materially affected whether people buy homes or not. So I would imagine that, especially because the run up to the election is such a short period of time anyway, that personally I feel it's not really going to have a material significant impact on people wanting to buy homes. I think what's more of interest is whether interest rates are going to come down as a result of the elections, or whether the changes that have been happening in the market in terms of inflation numbers and the state of the economy, that's probably more of interest.
I think there's worry, though, that given red hue governments tend to want to tax the rich and feed the poor, that they could start taking a swipe at what they perceive to be fat cat landowners and people purchasing large properties? Do you not think that could be in people's minds right now?
Well, there is that possibility, but of course the thing is, we in this particular sort of country are, I mean, it's hard to sort of read between the lines, but on the whole, people do like to buy their properties in the UK. That is a particular sort of feeling, and they don't need to be rich cats to be doing it, and they aren't rich cats to be doing it. What they want is a roof over their heads, and at this moment in time, rent's going up significantly quicker and above the inflation rate compared to what's happening with houses. And therefore, it's again getting that balance. And that's where you need the guidance of the right people to help you through that target. In Europe at this particular moment in time, they have reduced their interest rates for the first time, I believe, in 5 years. And they're trying to put pressure on the UK. And fundamentally, if the Bank of England keep holding out, they're not going to get overseas investors sort of putting their money here if they're needing to borrow money to act, because it's not sort of helping out. So the Bank of England, that they're holding out purposely, which is a bit daft. But when you actually look at what's going on, they've been holding out. The inflation rate's been coming down. The fat cats are the money lenders. They are making money hand over fist at the moment. They
always make money hand over fist.
But because the Bank of England are holding out, they're pushing the interest rates up, many of these lenders, because, as Wendy said, people want to live somewhere and they're still buying into it. And it's the need that's creating the sort of demand. So, I mean, it doesn't matter what we say about prices. They're going to go up and down. Whatever you do, it's going to be a worthy investment. It's going to be a worthy investment. And I think go along the right route, speak to the likes of Wendy, an expert on giving you a guidance to it. And it's a great time to start looking. It's a great time to start saving.
So Wendy, you'd say, I mean, you've said it from the get-go that frankly, any time's a good time. If you want to move somewhere and you want a roof over your head, any time's the right time. I know of a couple recently that have taken on a flat in the heart of London that was eye-wateringly expensive. And even though one's on 100k a year and the other one's on 60k a year, they're still struggling to make ends meet. Are we edging towards generation rent?
Very likely. If you consider that the average house price nowadays in the UK is creeping closer to 9 times the average salary rather than 8 times the 9 times. So it's almost feeling like a couple needs a third job between them to be able to afford just to buy the average home. But just to touch back on something that Hamish was saying regarding interest rates, yes, we've recently heard that the ECB has reduced rates. And so now there's questions as to whether the Bank of England is going to be doing the same.
Right, yes.
Timing wise, we're in an awful situation because they are restricted by PERDA. They aren't able to make any material changes to any bank.
Not until government's been reformed. Absolutely.
No. So definitely, I think it's a guarantee that the next monetary policy committee, when it sits, the rates are not going to be changing regardless of what's happening within the economy. So that's a real shame. But there are also some people arguing that that's maybe not a bad thing anyway, because we're not quite out of the woods yet in terms of the inflation issues that we've got. So maybe it's a blessing in disguise that the Bank of England are actually given a bit of a grace and are able to withstand the pressure being put on them to not change rates at this next meeting because of it.
Well, look, as ever, an education for me, no matter how cynical I get, I guess, according to Wendy Gibson of the First Time Buyers Club, any time's the right time. And according to Hamish, we need to just ride it through because we don't know what the hell's going to happen till it happens. Hamish, would you take us home, please, with a summation of where we're at?
Well, I mean, one of the great things, and like you, Gareth, it's always a pleasure to invite experts on like Wendy, because they know so much more than we do, us mere mortals, because they're there all the time and they're guiding people all the time. And all I sort of tend is pick up the pieces in the background in terms of what I do with property matters. So it is so good to actually, and the thing is, and I think it's refreshing because I think we've had 2 days running. We finish off to know that, hey, look, it's up to us what we choose to do, and it's up to us to select those experts to be working with. And to me, it's absolutely sort of great because it's so positive compared to what people are actually sort of saying. And the fact that in so much of the media, we haven't got the announcement from any of these potential new sort of ministerial sort of type people. They're not saying anything about housing. It's not part of their vocabulary at the moment. They've got.
No, I just don't understand it. I would have thought it'd be an instant vote winner, frankly. Promise to build a couple more houses, promise to increase the public stock. Oh my goodness! But then let's face it, Hamish and Wendy, they've been promising on and off to do this for what, 14 years?
How many?
At least all the way through. Actually, hang on. And the Labour government before too.
Oh yeah. And don't forget, the big thing is, just before we had the last change, the Labour Party had brought in this wonderful thing called HIPS, which had frightened everybody off putting their houses in the market. We've got the Law Society now putting in this daft thing about, we'll put this instead. You've got to do this before you put the houses on the market. Who the heck wants the politicians? Let's just sort of get on and live life without them.
And there is today's motto: let's live life without them. And I think we're going to end on that note. It only remains for me to thank Hamish McLay, of course, of Search Convey, and our special guest today, very special guest, Wendy Gibson of the First Time Buyers Club. I recommend that if you are looking to buy your house for the first time and you're quaking in your boots, worrying, first thing is stop worrying. Nothing you can do about it. Second of all, talk to Wendy Gibson. She'll set you straight. Thank you once again, both. And I say to everyone watching this, try and have a marvelous weekend. The sun's out, go and frolic a little and let the stresses fall away. And also look after your mental health. We do have a couple of messages come in. I didn't notice them before, but thank you very much. Chris Coyle has jumped in and said, the market does not like uncertainty. Elections increase volatility, etc., etc. Gosh, but I'm going to skip to the good bit. But the feeling this time is more positive, or at least sanguine, which is a lovely word for a Friday. And there's a last note from him. It's a big picture. It's a supply-demand equation, as per Hamish's. And basically, Chris, I think you'll agree, nothing we can do about it. We're in the mixer till we come out the other side. Nothing to do with interest rates till we've decided who the hell is going to lead us next and which colour they're going to be. As I said, I think the new country should be a purple. But until I would do, wouldn't I? Thank you once again. Have a wonderful weekend and take care all. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye.